enjoy this experience. As I said, after the meditation, the Pah Ekara San will come in directly, and you will see me on the flip side. Come to a place of stillness, a place of the heart. Come with me to a place where you, the chair you sit in, the room that surrounds you, and everyone that surrounds you in it are one. Begin by focusing on your breath. The most simple, most beautiful gift that reminds you with each passing second that the totality of you is not merely here, but comes from a place of wholeness, of oneness, of love. As you focus on this simple idea, I invite the energy of the dolphin to join us in this space. It comes swimming out of your heart, surrounds you with its joyful love and with its presence, reminding you that life is vast, that life is beautiful, and that you are life. Come with me, this dolphin says. Join me, and let us move to a space that is you before any of this. You before you took your first breath. You that chose to be here now, to be an ambassador of what is true, of what is beautiful, of what is real. Life is the most beautiful creation that we collectively manifest in this moment, yet it can be forgotten with an abandon that can only come from an avalanche of thought, of emotion, things that are often celebrated, but things that pass. And today, here and now, you are invited to focus on the things that are permanent, the states that do not come and go, the states of being that are underneath it all. State of love, state of joy, and the state of freedom. Stay here. Allow yourself to exist here. And allow yourself, when you emerge from it, to take with you who you truly, selflessly are. Without the self, without even the I am. A state that precedes this, the state of love. I hope you are comfortable in this moment. I hope that you can truly say within, all is well. And that this realization is not the result of what goes around in your head or in your world, but simply because you come home to you. And now, enjoy the words and the presence of the Pah Ekara San. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am the Pah Ekara San, sovereign servant of free energy, upholding the principles, the universal principles of love, of joy, of freedom, and of truth. It is indeed a strange sensation to sit here in front of you, because for most of you, years have passed, lifetimes have passed, personalities have passed. They have come and they have gone. And in the most beautiful of manifestations that is this reality, you don't even remember any of it. You sit here willingly accepting a limitation of time-based, space-based perspective that you call a lifetime. And it is good that you do, because it is only in these creations, these lifetimes, that you can experience yourself. That you can learn what you might create, who you might be if you no longer remember who you are. And this and every other lifetime that you have experienced is the result. In doing so, you discover, as some would like to say, that which you are and that which you are not. But that is not exactly the truth, is it? Because there isn't anything that you are not. So what is it then that these lifetimes, these realities, we call them Ekarayas in the good old Lemurian days, what are they about? Well, they are about discovering that part of yourself that we label savok, or in English terms that we label mind. Your mind is what you come here to experience. A beautiful, pristine, and extremely experimental creation that is so tight that it can only exist for a finite period of time, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Thank God for the end. Many people don't usually say thank God for the beginning, because you don't remember. Nor should you. Because remembering, really, truly remembering, would seize this experience instantaneously. You would not die. You would simply never have existed here. So therefore, the choice to remember is one that most people don't make, because it cuts short the experience. You have come in here with exactly what you needed to know, exactly what you needed to carry with you in order to have the experience, and nothing more. And you've come with a set of tools that have been mentioned in the presentation earlier already, and many other things that I've spoken about before. Tools that allow you to unpack this mind of yours. Now, while you are in this reality, and you've split yourself up between the state that you are and the state that you are not, i.e. the mind, you have done by default and by necessity the same thing with the world around you. It too has a mind. It too has destructive powers, destructive thoughts that most of you would never act upon when they have to do with your own being or the being of another. But when it comes to the being of the world, as the Pah Ekara San said earlier, most of you don't think that you have any influence except for the external conditions, yet it is simply the other way around. Your reality begins inside of you, and it ends inside of you. There is going to come a time when science evolves to such a level, becoming scientific adults, you could say, that they are going to understand this. In fact, there are many that already do. But unfortunately, as it goes in the scientific world, change only comes when those that had the original wrong idea die, or at the very least, retire. Then there's openness for true change in the scientific paradigm, and this is happening here now too. And it is not just happening because some older generations are making way for newer ones. These changes can happen inside of the mind of anyone. A 75-year-old scientist could come to a new conclusion if the time is ripe. And this is what I'm here to tell you today. The time is ripe. I have spoken many, many hours throughout the years, also in the years before that which you know as 2012. That big non-event that everyone waited for, everyone put their hopes and dreams on. Some in this crew even believed as many pieces of information would falsely have you believe in the past that just like that, the world was gonna change. The golden seas would come, the rainbows would dot the air, and everything would be different. But I ask you, are you different? Yes, of course, you're different from one moment to the next, but are you truly different? Many of you started hearing about the concept of 2012 and what it would entail, all the way back in the 90s, or some in the early 2000s around the harmonic convergence and the concordances that happened around that time. Big stuff in 2001, remember? Now, it wasn't just metaphysically speaking, big stuff. It's what I want to talk to you about. Because you may not understand yet, but you will soon, that the concept that you think about as 2012, the concepts that you think about as 2001, 9/11, and those sorts of things in human history, they are more connected than you think. I'll explain. Given the fact that you live in a dualistic reality by your own creation, you could change this today, by the way. But given that fact, and given what I have just said about your mind and how the manifestation of the mind within creates the mind of the planet, creates the worries of the planet, creates the concerns that you call suffering, war, poverty, hunger, and indeed death. The big one. All of that created simply because it needs to be here. That is not the problem. As it has been explained earlier, the problem is not the grand illusions. The problem is not the outside world. In fact, there isn't really a problem, because you are in complete control over the state of this earth. But you may not be ready to act just yet because you don't know all of the information that I want to talk to you about today. And this goes back a while. I mean, I can go all the way back to Lemurian days, but I'll leave that for another time. I'm only going to go back now to the 1960s. Because as I said, you are living in a dualistic reality where both the concepts of love, joy and freedom, etc. exist, but also the concepts of time and space and the other grand illusions and everything that comes with it. Suffering, pain, death. Because of this fact, not only do you have thoughts in your head that would try to control you, but you also have external situations that would try to control you. People, society, governments, belief systems, expectations, ways in which you have to live that some people think is good because it is the lifestyle of a long time ago. Other people think it's good to break with all of that and live completely different lives. And everyone is in conflict about identity politics, about all the things that supposedly separate us. Where does this all come from? How has it begun that over time it is possible to be in a society where people can't look at each other because of the skin tone color, or because of a class distinction, or because of a cultural distinction? How did this all begin? Now, as I said, I can go far back, but if you start in the 1960s, which I will do, then you will come to understand that in a dualistic reality there are cycles. Cycles of upward momentum and downward momentum, a sinus curve you could call it. Up and down, up and down, up and down within parameters that are fortunately going upward in the long run. This is because of the very simple principle that energy tends to raise itself naturally. Naturally. Without effort, but not unnaturally. With effort to stop it. And this is exactly the cycles that you have been going through in your lifetimes. That's why I'm starting around the 1960s, to show you the flow of this stuff and how it works. So, love, joy, freedom. Let's look at it. 1960, hippie time. Everyone happy, everyone in a state of free love, unless maybe you were a Republican, and then that didn't work out so well. But otherwise, free love, Woodstock, John Lennon, the whole 9 yards. Everything speaking about love, speaking about joy, and people believed in their hearts, just like you all did in 2012, that a change was about to occur and that society would never be the same after all the previous generations got out of the way. Right? Wrong. The 60s became the 70s. And you'll see that all of these things, all of these cycles that I'm going to be talking about today appear in 22-year-long rhythms. So you have the 60s and the 70s. By the time you got to the end of the 70s, it was hard to see a hippie. It was hard to see anyone walking around with their hair out wild. The hippie turned into the yippie. The hippie became the businessman. the hippie Woodstock became the stock market, if you will. And you moved from a state where you, maybe not you per se, but where humanity thought freedom in the sense of love had come. And they opened their hearts, and they opened their souls, and they opened their minds without understanding the dualistic reality they were living in. And what happened is the entry of business, big business, that would eventually move all the way into capitalism and globalization the way you know it today. So, 80s. You remember the TV shows, you remember Wall Street, you remember New York, you remember the big bangs, the big bucks, walking over people, taking other people out, because it was all about the money. And in that state, everyone in the Western world came to a point of having enough. And in that conditional state of mind, a state of economic happiness was created. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm saying happiness. I'm not saying joy. And just for those who don't know any of this so well, happiness is an emotion. It is structured. It is a geometry that is fixed, and therefore thoughts can occur because of it. Joy is an unstructured feeling. And most people confuse feeling and emotion. And when they do think about feeling, they're thinking about physical feelings, not the feelings that are permanent. A state of happiness is an emotion because it comes and goes. A state of joy is a feeling that is unstructured, not stuck in a box, because it is always present underneath everything, as the Pah San explained earlier today. So, in the 80s, a lot of people went through the improvement of their lives in financial ways, emotional ways, physical ways. Society seemed to become freer, richer, faster, bigger, better. And for a long time, the continent of Europe was spared this vast tsunami of release into duality. But before you knew it, as it goes, the concepts came flying over here, and the same thing happened here in Europe, as it did in America, as it even did in all the continents that weren't even part of the so-called Western society. So you have the 80s and you have the 90s. Joy, happiness, the idea of improving your conditions. And then, the one following joy in the sequence is freedom. And after the 90s comes the 2000s. And in 2001, most of you, everyone here I believe today, was alive. Freedom was taken away on this planet. Now, not to worry, I'm telling you this because it's all about the fucking change. I hope you know that. Yes, we swear sometimes. It's your language, not ours. You invented it. Take charge of it. Take responsibility of it. It is all about a change. 2001, Twin Towers, the end of freedom around the world, the end of simply thinking that the world is sane, and the beginning of fear. Fear in everything. Initially in flying, getting on a flight, but eventually it spread to society at large, stadiums, supermarkets, your television, every TV program you watch. How many do you think that you can name that don't focus on fear, on drama, on destruction, or on death? The ones that do maybe last for a season if you're lucky. The ones that don't become the hit that runs 10 years. That's the truth. So here you are in 2000s, freedom taken away on a large scale, so vast that nobody even noticed. So vast because it all was supposed to be safe and for your protection, right? They made you believe that if you boarded a plane, it could be the last plane you ever boarded, and it was the beginning of the cycle of the 60s and onward anyway, of demonizing yet another culture, yet another part of this world, the same way the demonization had already happened previously with the Jewish culture, the black culture, and on it goes. Now at that point, you come into a cycle where at the same time, of course, synthetic freedom, programmed freedom, programmed love, and programmed joy, digital life surfaces. Everyone is all of a sudden on the internet, everyone is on emails, and you begin to eat the poison together with the candy, as many do. And then 2000s, 2010. What's after 2010? The 20s. Now, I can't recall, did anything happen in the 20s? Did anything happen to humanity around that time? Could it have to do, Barack? Could it have to do with truth? The one that comes after freedom. Love, joy, freedom, truth. Your truth got seriously screwed. Everything about it. I don't have to go into detail. We've always said that anything that is done to you on the outside of you cannot really hurt you unless you believe in it and unless you let it. Unfortunately, a lot of people believed, a lot of people let it happen, and a lot of people are suffering the consequences. And I'm not merely talking beautiful humans, I'm not merely talking about vaccines or experimental medicine or lockdowns or any of it. I'm talking about the breaking of human spirit in a way that it had never happened before since those 60s that I'm telling you about. Now, it is very possible that many of you sitting here or listening to this later say, yeah, but, you know, I saw through it all. It never really reached me, it never really affected me. And some might say, but yeah, I actually think it is not all lies what happened, and I went along with it, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I'm still alive. Well, what's the big deal? There's people that say that. There's many people that say that. Well, the big deal is that something changed in the human mind, just like it did in the 60s, just like it did in the 80s, just like it did in the 2000s, and now again in 2020. 22 years each time. However, the good news, if I may say so, is that cycles are finite and cycles come to an end. Recently, on September 11, 2023, that cycle came to an end. And now you are sitting in what you could consider said by many the fourth wave of human consciousness. It is exactly for this reason that we asked the Pah Ekara San, don't wait until February. This must open now. We must begin today. Because, beloved humans, my beloved brothers and sisters, because we are at the beginning of a new era of consciousness. You could say that after this cycle of 2023 that began in 2020, why is it not running? Why is it not running for another 20 years or 22 years? There were many that believed that it would, but it didn't. Apparently, mind and those trying to control things, apparently what they are finding out is that you can only take things so far. And then it was taken further. And then it was taken further. And then it was taken further. The result was a cry of human consciousness, not a cry for help, a cry of birth, a cry of reawakening, a cry that says this far and no further, a cry that said the line is drawn here and you shall not pass. That line has nothing to do with the outside world. That line has to do with the inner world. Because as I said earlier, for most of you and most of you watching this, and especially those that are out there simply living life, not even believing any of what I'm saying here or anything metaphysical even exists, for most of those people, they don't know what happened to them. They don't know that the person they were before the 60s or before the 80s or before the 2000s and now before 2020 simply ceased to exist. And innocence was trampled upon. And innocence was not lost, however. It was wakened. It is for this very reason that I am not going to share in any great detail what would have happened if this change had not been made, and if this shutting down of love, joy, freedom, and now truth would have gone on for another 20 years. You don't want to know. I can know, because these realities repeat themselves. They tend to repeat themselves quite a bit as you go through these educations of what it means to be you, of what it means to be human, of what it means to be all of these things. They tend to repeat themselves. Sometimes they don't go as far as where this one has gone. Oftentimes, the shutting down of love is enough to break a species, enough to break a spirit, enough to break a mind. Imagine the surprise of those that are also you, of course, that part of you, that just like the alcoholic, just like the addict, digs deeper into their own misery and now decides to slit the throat of joy. And still, no spirit broken. Not really. Affected, yes. Changed, yes. Dimmed down, yes. But broken, no. And the next step, 2001. And now the next step, 2020. And what do you see? I look at you and I see in front of me lions. I see in front of me those that are ready to roar but don't know yet the voice that is truly within them. That is what I see, humanity. And I see that a vast change has happened in these last few years since your lockdowns. Because the change that has happened is that in most people, something is building up, something has been born that now asks questions, that now says, what is this all about really? And if this happened, and if that happened, and if these people lied about this, and if these people lied about that, then maybe there's other things like that. There's other situations where the truth is not necessarily spoken. Because as I told you, it is the shutting down of truth that this 22-year cycle would have been about. But it didn't. The very same digital reality that was created to shut you up, to put you in boxes that you would never walk out of. Echo chambers, they call them these days. That very same reality is the reason why the plan has failed. There are too many minds connected now. There are too many hearts connected now. There are too many souls that know truth for falsehoods, reality and lies. And many, and I hope there are many here too today, quietly within themselves think, Mother Creator, never again. I have more in me than what I have been living. I am more than these things. I am more than these situations that have been taken away from me, or at least have been attempted to be taken away from me. I am. And the only thing stopping that from becoming a reality, something that is not just words spoken on this stage, but activity that bursts forth in your hearts, the only thing stopping it is you. The only thing stopping it is you deciding that it is still good enough. That it still could go a little bit further, you know. Let's see what they have in mind for the shutting down of life. Well, you know it. Transhumanism is coming, isn't it? The first upload of the digital, of the human mind into the digital mind. That would have been planned for somewhere early in the 40s. And that would have been the shutting down of life itself, because if you even believe for 1 minute that you are something as simple as computer code that can simply be put on some sort of AI algorithm on some server somewhere and can live forever in a reality that you're supposed to come into just to learn some lessons, well then, you've got another thing coming. But that was the next plan. You can see it happening already. But it's not happening. I guarantee you, it's not happening. May sound like a big piece to chew off, but it is not happening because you are here today. Not just people sitting here in these chairs, not just people watching this later on, but you are here on Earth today. Did you know that? Sometimes you forget, you know. It's so common to wake up every morning and to go to bed every night and to think, oh yeah, here I am again. This is me again. Okay. Never do you think, maybe there's something, or maybe there's something else that I actually also am, that is having this experience. But it is that something else that is coming through humanity now, the creator self. That part of you, if you can believe it, in a metaphysical reality that is not finite, that set itself down and decided to enter into this reality for that which is to be experienced here. A reality that you are co-responsible for intercreating with everyone else, together with all of the teachers that teach in these realities, together with all of the loved ones that you have in this reality, together with all of the ones you hate, at least societally speaking. I can't imagine that anyone here hates anyone. But as a society, nobody loves Hitler, and yet Hitler is you. Nobody loves Putin or Zelensky or Biden or Bush or any of these people. Nobody likes the bully. Nobody likes the person hurting them, but it is you. And these are the times in which that memory will come again. Thank you very much. As I said, the spell of humanity has been broken. And now is the time to not discard your lives per se, but to expand them, to build into the existence that is you the possibility of ascension. That word, that idea that everyone knows theoretically. Nobody knows how to do it. And those that think they do, they're simply listening to voices that have been saying for the last 150 years that it's around the corner and that it is a event that is just going to happen. No. You can walk away here right now, but it won't just happen. There's work to be done, and it's fun work. There's work to be done in the breaking down of your personality and its walls, and your ego and its walls, and your mind and its walls. That work is simpler than you think and more effective than you could possibly imagine. But now, let me get to 2012 for a moment, because I skipped it, didn't I? 2012 is an interesting one to us. Not just myself, but also the others, Kutumi, Adamus, many of the ones that speak here, Imzaia, a tachyonic being that you would identify as dragon energy that is currently sitting in these trees outside. All of us have been saying for so long, since 2007, do not get your hopes up on 2012. 2012 was never supposed to be the answer. 2012 was a project. And I call it a project because it came literally from the think tanks of those organizations that you would call CIA and those sorts of things. I don't even need to name names. I have nothing against these organizations. All I'm saying is 2012 was a form of human control. And so was the New Age movement. All of these things, with enough truth mixed in with lies to make it so that a lot of people went astray, stopped doing the work, and started thinking that it would be done for them, that it was just going to happen. And isn't that always much easier? It's easier to get a limo arrive in front of your house than to have to take the bus, then the train, then the airplane, then the train again, then walk for 5 miles and get up the mountain. It's much easier if the limo just comes. And so everyone was put to sleep. But beloved human. But it didn't end there. Around some time, let's say 2008, 2009, we decided, coming through this body and many others around the world, all right then, if everyone that is currently in this Lightworker New Age zone believes in 2012 with all of their hearts so much, well, let's use it. Because as we've said so many times, you express the reality that you experience. So if everyone had these hopes about the concept of December 2012, we openly said, well, let's do it then. Let's do it. And in 2007, we began a series of classes known as the Mastering the Grand Illusions and anything that came after that, in order to help people get there, in order to use that point of December 21st, 2012, just like any other portal, just like an 1111 portal, an 888 portal, the Lion Gates portal, whatever portals you use. Or before the portals, it was the moon, the harvest moon, the Lemurian moon, the this moon, the that moon. No problem with any of these things. You express reality into being. So if you believed in these things, they could happen. And as such, speaking about these things very openly like we did back in 2007, we began to work with you. Or at least work with those that were there then, those that were following this material back then. And some, who are here today, by the way, actually took this and worked with it. Now, most, unfortunately, didn't. So for those that often send in the questions to this body, what about 2012? When did nothing, why did nothing happen, and when is it going to happen? We can tell you, it didn't, because most people that listened to these types of messages back then did so in a passive way, loving the energy, enjoying being in the energy, allowing many releases to happen and many improvements in their being and in the world around them, usually the local world around them, but not to the extension that was necessary to actually initiate the change. Reason being, the inability, the illusory inability to let go of the past, and the illusory inability to try and shape the future. Or not per se the inability, but the desire to try and shape the future, without realizing that the only thing that you can give shape to is this moment. Another thing that all of you have been bored to death with for so many years, as you read your books, you went to your seminars, you even, many of you are teachers, healers, presenters, have your own businesses in this sort of spiritual cote. But the changes, ladies, gentlemen, and other beings, the changes, where are they? They're sort of here, actually. If I feel into the bodies, they're sort of right here. They're in the heart, but they're not in the mind, and therefore they are not in the belly. And the belly is what manifests your reality, the chakra that is here. All beings, almost all beings, got stuck thinking it was a nice idea, 2012. It was a nice theory, but I plead with you, please go back and listen. Watch me speak and others back in those days and listen to what we said. Listen to the steps that were required. And then discover for yourself whether those steps were taken or not. And please, do not take my words as judgmental. That is the last thing I want to do. I simply need to point all of these things out so that you understand the opportunity that is here and now. Nothing to do with this school, everything to do with you and you and you and all of you and everyone watching, even those that aren't watching. Everything to do with you. You have broken the cycle that was building, that was to the point of reaching for your throats, metaphorically speaking, and starting to squeeze the life out of you. You have stopped that, and now you sit as a species, as a consciousness at the beginning of a new wave, a new era. This era, as I've said before, as others have also said before, broke and started in September 11 of this year, 22 years to the date, that every single one of these cycles switched. So you see, there are these larger cycles, and there are the cycles within those cycles, each time giving you the opportunity to begin again, to make new choices, to step out of the hypnosis that you're in and open your eyes, open your hearts, and begin to live the life of the Lemurian, the life that is based on love, based on joy, based on freedom, based on truth and on life force itself. A life that is focused on ascension, where ascension is not simply escaping this reality or rising above this reality, but simply the logical conclusion to the exercise reality that you are currently in, called an Ekaraya. If you want, you can learn much more about these words. You can study them. You can bring whatever you want out of them. Whatever you want. But it is up to you. It is up to each of you to make this choice. And to understand that you do not sit in a life that is being lived for you, but to understand that there are things for you to find out about yourself that you currently simply have no idea about, because you're looking at too small a space. An example: where does your body end? Does it end here? Does it end at the skin? Does it end at the magnetic fields, the geometric fields, all of these things that are around it? Or does the body stretch as far as you can see? The latter, I would suggest. It is for this very reason that expression before experience is even a thing, that it can even be done. Because your body is not the body of you. It is merely an avatar so that you can define the space between yourself and the other and experience these so-called grand illusions, like separation. But the body goes further than that. The body is all the matter that you see around you, and all the people that you see around you. That's the body. The body stretches as far as the horizon, if that's where you're looking, And for any astronaut on the International Space Station, their body reaches into infinity because that's where they're looking. The body goes as far as the eye can see, as the ear can hear, as the tongue can taste, and as the skin can touch. That's the body. And once you understand that, everything changes. By default, you cannot see beyond a world of separation if you separate yourself in your belief systems. But if you embrace it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, well, then by default, your illusion of separation diminishes and disappears, or at least begins to, for those that might be looking for answers there. So, the 2012 project, or as I like to call it, the 2012 debacle, was a scenario where we tried to go along with you, to build the energy up to that point, because that is what you believed was possible. And unfortunately was a boat that was missed by many simply because people did not feel ready to make the changes within themselves that were required in order to be an ambassador and an active vessel, an actor within the transformation. Within, literally. Now, however, and especially with the breaking of this cycle that started in 2020, let's say, there is a great opportunity. Not one to build towards, like 2012 was, but one to make real now. Today and tomorrow and the next day. One to start living right now. That is what is here. And this may be the simplest of messages, but it is the truth. There you have it. You have this opportunity now to do and make real all of those things that are floating around in your head when you open the folder spirituality, metaphysics, enlightenment, light work, whatever you call it. Everything that is in that folder in your head can be realized, but it will require work. And that is what we are here for. To offer you the tools and the opportunities to work within yourself, but also with others around you in this community. To come together, to practice, to see these things for yourself. And as I said, and the others have said, we voluntarily chose to make all of this freely accessible to any human on the planet, simply to take that obstacle out of the way. For some, money would have been a barrier that would have been too expensive. Others would be like, well, you are not supposed to make money with spiritual things. Others would have been like, well, you see that it's all just a business model, an earning model. So we worked together, this crew and I and all of us, and we decided to pull that plug out so that nobody could say that we want anything out of this. Well, I do want a hug. I do want to see you grow. And I do want you to know how much we love you. How much you mean to all of us. Every single one of you. And how much of an honor it is to be able to stand in front of you here today and to bring back these tools to you, to give you the opportunity to take these steps, which Granted, and I say it again, you can find within yourselves. As the Pah Ekara San said earlier in the day, there's no need to come here. There's no need. You're not going to get the secret. You're not going to get it trademarked. You're not going to be able to sign an NDA when you leave here, once you've ascended or anything like that. Now sign the NDA. Non-disclosure of Ascension. No. All we're doing by creating this space and creating these opportunities is to accelerate the process. Because where two or more gather in the name of love, gather in the name of the Creator, reality is created and reality changes. It is possible to do all of this extremely by yourself, to pack up and leave and go sit on a mountain somewhere and never see another human being again. Yes. You can find it that way. But, as I said, that takes some time. We found this out with the Tibetans and with some others that did this before you. However, putting consciousness together, opening hearts and understanding that each of these heart spaces here is the same heart space, the same one, baby, is exactly what you need, is exactly the accelerant that you need to start this fire of consciousness. So, our doors are open, our hearts are open, our minds are open, and we are ready to work with you. The big question now is, are you? Or do you choose to be? It's that simple. The choice doesn't have to be made today. There is no choice to make, really. You can make the choice moment to moment. Do you feel like being here? Come here. We're always here. At least the Pah Ekara San, that is currently channeling me, is always here. And in case you wondered, yes, that is the Kuan Yin that you think of, in a male body. Figure it out. As such, always welcome. We will create moments like this one that we call salons, where we can use the fact that you still need your schedules in many cases to put in your appointments and make sure that you know what's happening 2 weeks from now, future of the self, future of the other. And you are welcome to join those. But for those that are here, that don't live off the calendar anymore, that say, fuck it all, you are welcome anytime. And I mean that with the bottom of my heart intact. It's not a bottomless pit. Always. So, having said all of that, I would say, let's get going. For those of you interested, our next class, in which we will make this practical, will be on October 29th. Put it in your calendars. We will then deeply, deeply go through everything that you might have missed in these previous colleges that have happened throughout the years, and we will give you, in about 6 hours, a summary of all of the tools that are already available, put in a way together that you can understand how they work together. From the active ingredients that were mentioned earlier of reality creation, to the grand illusions, to working with the elements, to understanding Lemurian society, to move beyond your Dutch or English languages and step into that which is known as Dahlyn, which is why love is referred to as Da, joy is referred to as Ba. Dahlyn is a metaphysical language which is the only language that is effectively real and usable outside of these holograms that you currently find yourself in, that you call realities. Dahlyn is not only a language, it is literally the building blocks of society. When you express Da, you don't just say I love you. You express that love, you build it, you create it, you bring it forth like a spell, and you manifest it in this reality over and over again. Dahlyn, when you learn how to express yourself, you will see is the simplest language or metaphysical expression that you can ever learn, because it is based simply on three things, if I may say so. One, the active ingredients: love, joy, freedom, truth, life, gratitude, grace, and well-being. Or, as I just said, Da, Ba, Va, etc. And simply the chakra system and the elements: earth, fire, water, air, that create this world around you on a lower, more vibrational level than the active ingredients themselves. Those are expressed even easier. You only need one letter, not two. Earth, Oh, Ah, Eh, and Ich. Those very simple expressions, plus the active ingredients that I just told you about, each time with whatever you're trying to express, comes together in what we call a geotrinity, because we like to sound fancy. But truly it is just a triangle, if you want. A triangle where anything, for instance a word like a greeting like Sanake, is simply represented each time in a triangular geometry and expressed. The most beautiful thing about this is that I challenge you, if you wish, to look at any existing language right now in the universe, or at least let's stick to Earth. Anyone on Earth, all based on those same building blocks: Da, Ba, Va, Ra, Ka, twisted up regularly in that which you would call geometry. This is not the point of today's class, so I'm not going to go deeply into this. But all I'm telling you is that if you give it a chance, you might be surprised with what you're going to find, and with the ease and grace with which the work that is ahead actually can be lived. So, having said all of that, this black hole that was 2012, that took so many spiritual, new age, light worker people into this black hole energy, can now be seen for what it is. The hopes and the dreams that you don't even know you allowed to die there back in 2012 are still with you. Where do you think all that energy went? Everything that all of those people, not just yourself, but millions of people around the world have been building up towards. Where do you think it went when nothing happened? It didn't go anywhere. It is still right here. It is still available to you. So that means that not only do you now sit at the beginning of a wave of consciousness where no longer these restrictions will have an effect on you like they did before, but where you also have a reservoir, a near infinite reservoir available of previously built up energy that is just sitting there, waiting for you to use it. Anyone that sees with energetic eyes, except for the physical limitations of the waves that you can call visible light, can see it. And it has been here since then. It cannot be used for bad, it cannot be used for drama, it cannot be used for any negative agenda. It is free energy. And it has been here for over 15 years. Now, don't look for those that understand my words and that feel something with them. Don't look at those years since 2012 as, or just before that, as a mistake. Don't look at it as a loss. Don't look at it as something that failed. Look at it as a lunchbox that you have prepared the day before going to work, something to take with you, to give you sustenance, to give you the energy that you, those that will take this up, are going to need. In other words, it is 2012 all over again. And those that spoke back then, for those that wish to go back and listen, and even those that some here may not like by names such as David Icke, one of my incarnations as Ekara. We told you in that body, we told you in this body, we told you in many bodies, months before December, don't count on it. Nothing is going to happen. The main phase of that time already took place in October of 2011 during a metaphysical event called Ascension of Life After All Matter, or Life After Ascension of All Matter. It was a transformational event for all vibrational energy in the universe, but still nothing was done with it. To do something with it, that time is now. Well, having said all of that, I thank you for listening. I thank you for contemplating these words. I thank you for considering what your life truly is about and why you are living it. Whatever the conclusion is you come to, one thing is sure: I love you. I don't just love you, I am in love with you. I am in joy with you. And together, beloved humanity, we are freedom. Let this moment be a marker that states loudly to the world, humanity is awakened. And let you, those here today and those listening to these words, be the ambassadors for this truth. That even if you never come back to this hall, that you allow to take with you what you believe of these words to be true, and that you do not hold it back just for the self, but that you open your hearts, your mouths, and your bellies, and that you inspire a new wave of consciousness for this planet and for humanity. I will see you when I see you, and so it is.